Hello everyone, Jason or, well, Raijin Rising here, and now that I've made a couple of videos on RWBY's evolution, whether it's visual or by animation, I wanted to close it out and close out my content from before Volume 7 with this discussion video. You can find the links to all those original videos below as well. So the purpose of this video is mostly to fill in the gaps of the things that I missed, as well as to give my personal take. I got a lot of comments from you guys saying like, what about the water effect in Volume 6 with the Leviathan sort of wading his way through? I gotta say, yeah, I missed that. But let's get to the rest of the things. So starting it right off, Volume 1, I love the dorm scenes. I love the Emerald Forest. I like Downtown Vale a lot too, yet I get why they changed it for Volume 2, and honestly, I do prefer how it ended up. But like, you showed me the classroom stuff for Forever Fall? Get that out of here. Like, I don't know. Like Forever Fall looked way better than it did, like, in the Blake trailer. Like, having the white sky or the pale sky or whatever you have. Like, yeah, it just came out way better. And also, by the way, the 2D trees, I finally found the image that I was thinking of when I said in the original video that these trees were 2D. Even the rock that Blake is standing on or sitting on is 2D as well. It's just a picture of a rock. But if you only need to show something from one angle, it doesn't really matter if it's 3D or not. I get why the fandom has a soft spot for the poser years, and specifically as well, again, you know, Volume 1 with the shadow people, because really there was no compositing process for most scenes. Like, if you have a talking head scene in the dorm hall, like, there's no effects here. This is literally just how it looks, just in Poser itself. Unless you had semblance effects, or unless you had like weapons firing or anything like that, there was no such thing as compositing. Or like in those, if you had a nighttime scene, yes. If you had this one scene in episode 1, yes. And they even faked active lighting in episode 2, and I completely forgot, like, when John helps RWBY up. Here's something interesting as well, that unless you followed Monty on Facebook, you probably didn't notice. Volume 1's final fight is a carbon copy, or it has carbon copy animation sequences with a work in progress thing that he never finished, yet he still posted online. Moving on to Volume 2, it's mostly a story of compositing and color. So everything is recolored to be darker, more muted. And it was a good move, but how do you balance that with, like, fantasy? How do you still make this world feel fantastical? And to an extent, I think the mere presence of characters in the environment is what made it fantastical, because now you're having these extremely colorful characters just absolutely standing out from the set. Yet, the set itself is just whatever. And especially in Volume 2 with Vale, it's kind of just, there's no color. And this is, you know, this is what Unicorn of War was tweeting about, which is probably the reason why a lot of you were here in the first place. Because you saw that retweet, that like, wow, Vale would be so much nicer if it was green and it had accented colors to complement that green. It had silver and purple, and throw a splash of ruby red in there, Thomas says. Well, I did that. So, well, Unicorn of War, how does this look? Is this the kind of Vale that you were thinking of? I threw this together in Adobe InDesign. It's super crude, but you get the point here. Is this the kind of Vale that you'd like to see if the show ever does go back to Vale? Like, well, the RWBY said it would. Is this what you'd want to see? Is this what you kind of just wish Vale was the entire time? I mean, I gotta say, yeah, Thomas has some pretty good ideas going on here. I don't have too much to say for Volume 3, so let's just get into the Maya years. Volumes 4 and 5, in the main visual evolution video that I made, I didn't really know how to talk about them. I basically said that Volume 5 used the bloom effect extensively, but to be honest, Volume 4 uses it a hell of a lot more in some ways, like, or it's just so much sharper or so brighter light bouncing off of, especially Blake in this scene in episode 3. Like, I think the right answer is that Volume 5 uses them differently, but not necessarily more often. Or they're just more environmental than they are on characters. So I don't know why I said that they were used on characters when, like, I mean, yeah, they were, but, like, it's more of an environment thing. And Volume 5 had a lot of what are called God rays as well, too. So you had that in episode 8, in the freezer burn talk. You have that in all of the scenes that take place in Lionheart's office. Also, like, he's missing his lines in his death scene. He doesn't have them in this shot. It's kind of weird. I think that's what made me look at him and think, oh, he's dead. He didn't have his lines. His lines are gone soon. He will be too. One of Volume 5's problems, I don't need to say this or repeat this, but let's just go with it. Show, don't tell. So I was kind of surprised a lot in Volume 5 with the amount of talking that they didn't have 2D narrations, those 2D assets telling the story as somebody talks over them. You know, like Weiss talking to Yang, like, why didn't we see, like, little illustrations of Weiss's birthday or the parents fighting? Also, is Willow Schnee the real thirsty mom? Answer below. Or, how many thirsty moms do you think there'll be? Answer below. And with Volume 5, I didn't really know how to talk about something else in my main video. With, you know, Volume 5 being just darker and more muted, I had come up with this concept that I used in one of the scripts that I just deleted because I kept deleting Volume 5's script in that video over and over and over again, just starting over. I had this idea called depth of color, where it would basically be what you'd think of depth of field. Depth of field is the camera coming into or out of focus in certain element or certain parts of the shot. But what if that was that way but with color? That's basically not focus but color, depth of color. And I think what it ended up being was Volume 5 had depth of field in a lot of shots, but they were just in the background. And I think, like, it was never like one character's in focus and one character's out of focus. Or it was, but, like, very sparingly, like, you know, I showed it in my main video. But ultimately, I think it was just a combination of the muted color palette plus the depth of field that make it look in Volume 5 as if there's not, like, this weird depth of color thing. And lastly, in Volume 5, when I was talking about the yellow lighting in my color video, I was mostly irked about it with its use inside the Mistral home, because it's so dark. Like, they're sitting in the dark with one light on. Why? Why is the whole house not just lit with these yellow lights? Why is it this one overhead light? That was so weird to look at. And then that sort of becomes the aesthetic of Volume 5 itself, especially when you have all of those other scenes that, I mean, rightfully do have yellow light because that's what would be there in that lighting condition. But when you have the Mistral house doing it too and doing it so darkly, and then those are all of the scenes that you remember because they were sitting and talking, yeah, it didn't really do the volume many favors. So getting into Volume 6, I'm going to talk about matte paintings more because I just love how they're used, and I don't think I ever really articulated that in a specific way in the main video. It saves production time to make those flat images, yet with the way that matte paintings are used in Volume 6, it doesn't take away from how immersive 3D environments are, because you're having all of those 3D characters walk around. And one of the reasons why Argus was built so well is because, I mean, you have like 3 matte paintings back to back, or they're interlaced with entirely 3D shots, or, I mean, basically any time the military base is shown in the background of those shots, it's a matte painting, right? Only when they actually go to the military base is it 3D. And also Levi's splash effects. Thanks for telling me. Yeah, I didn't realize that. I wasn't, because I was just so focused on how the entire ocean was 3D that I didn't really see the splashes were 2D, so thanks for pointing that out again. And let's look at how the different volumes immersed their characters in their environment. Because when we're talking about the visual development of a show, in an animated show, one of the biggest like behind the scenes conversations that you don't really think about is how do we make these characters look like they actually belong in that environment? How do we make them look like they are in that world? Yet how do we also have them stand out from that world? And for Volume 1, that really wasn't a conversation. In Volume 2, that conversation began with, well, let's make the environment dark, or muted, or colorless, and the characters are bringing all the color to the scene so they look like they belong in that world, yet they're also standing out from it. And then in Volume 3, you can tell that the environment's on fire, but the characters aren't, except for Yang. And in the Maya years, they entirely, for all of the Maya years, the backgrounds are appearing as painterly. Like, especially in this scene at their home in Patch. And that's another thing. Like, a lot of the times, the background in really any shot, like, if you go far enough back, there's a 2D asset there. Like, there's 3D trees, but beyond that, there's 2D trees. Or just a 2D image of the rest of the forest that the 3D trees are covering up and making it look like it's all 3D. And then, of course, in Volume 5 and 4 as well, you have the bloom effect that is acting on characters, it's acting in the environment, and it's rooting the two together. And then in Volume 6, you ditched that, or the RWBY ditched that, and they added depth of field in a different way to where it's the depth of field plane is in between some characters, or it switches back and forth a couple times in the same shot even. So by using a camera trick in a medium where there is no camera, we are understanding it to happen in the same way that it would in a live action shoot. So looking ahead to the Volume 7, what we can see from the trailer looks a lot like Volume 6. Like, you have depth of field, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of matte paintings here and there, but then it also looks even more like Genlock than Volume 6 did, because Volume 6 borrowed matte paintings and depth of field from Genlock. So you have the Mistral, or not Mistral, the Mantle haze, this orange haze going around in the scenes. Like, that, to me, that reminds me of the Battle of New York from the premiere episode of Genlock a lot. Like, the orange aesthetic that the city had in that, plus the orange aesthetic in Mantle, like, it does look, to me, a lot more like Genlock. Also, for my 2D assets video, I didn't know a lot of the fight effects were 2D, whether it's Yang's fire ammo, or I believe those white streaks that happen to influence motion and speed, or accentuate motion and speed, are also 2D. And Maya might have the same thing but a 3D effect for what was 2D in Poser, or it might not, but it looks a lot more 3D in Maya. And my last point of conversation for this video is that given how important color inspiration and color theory is in RWBY, yeah, a lot of people are saying that the characters, some of them, aren't as colorful as they should be, like Tyrion especially. And for me, like, I can understand it. He does need an outfit change, I'll tell you that much. I like his duster. Maybe he could just fight in that. You give him a new duster, make it like a faded purple. Give him a tail hole so he can fight with his tail while keeping the duster on. But yeah, to be honest, like, I don't ever really put that much stock in, oh my gosh, this character doesn't completely exude their color inspiration. Like, it's never been too much for me. But, I don't know, to each their own. Obviously, like, honestly, like, if that's you, go ahead. That's not me, though. But, that's gonna be it, though. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you for Volume 7. Take care.